hearty welcome to this week's edition of the Awanachi Conversation podcast. And I'm so excited that you could make time to join us on this exciting edition where I will be talking to the amazing Nancy Handabile. She's a filmmaker, she's an actress, and of course, she's an acting coach. Nancy, welcome. Give me a high five. Super excited to have you on the show today.
Super excited to be here. I'm such a fan of this magazine, so I'm like,
hey, let's do
I'm
this.
Here.
I can tell you, yellow is my favorite color.
It is?
So just seeing you in yellow, you literally made my day. I know I'm not wearing full yellow, just as well.
Yellow,
there's a bit of yellow in here.
You're wearing happy colors.
Exactly. That's what I
It's
love
great
about
because
yellow.
At least you're putting us in this happy mood. Yeah.
Tell me, why do you like yellow? You mentioned earlier that.
I like yellow because one, it looks good on black women. Honestly.
Come on. Yes.
It's like it's just there. It's a happy color. Sunflowers are my favorite color.
Oh wow.
And so I don't know, it makes me really, really happy.
Okay.
It's a happy color. On Fridays, during the weekend, I try to wear as much yellow as possible or pink. But I'm driven to colors that make me feel how I want to feel on that particular day.
Oh wow.
And today I'm just feeling happy.
Happy and yellow.
Yes.
So, Nancy, like I said, it's such a joy for you to have agreed to honor us with your presence on the Awanachi Conversations. We are here really to amplify the voices of girls and women in different spaces. You are a creative. We've talked to lawyers before, accountants, just women from different walks of life. Because what we'd like is for somebody to be inspired to become a better version of themselves. We would like somebody to be inspired to celebrate their uniqueness.
Yes.
Now, you are a filmmaker, you are an actress, you are an acting coach. Could you take us through your journey? What drew you to the world of film and acting?
The world of film and acting has always just been in my blood. I've tried to do other things. I mean, I studied journalism.
Yeah.
And I still found myself. So I started acting stage in church, as everybody does, when I was about 6 years old.
Yeah.
I put up my first play when I was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I love telling stories. I love telling stories. I love putting stories in color. I want people to watch something and see themselves. So for me, it's something that it's a spiritual thing for me. To put up something, to write something, to put up a play, to put up a movie, see it from its conceptualization to seeing it on screen, to seeing it on stage. There's just something that's very fulfilling that when I stop being a creative, no matter how much I say, I'm not going to be creative, I'm not going to create anything this month, there's just something that happens to me. I'm not really the same person. So I was drawn to it because I had people around me who saw the skills I had, the talent I had, and they said, do you want to try directing? I'm like, okay, let me try it. Turned out I was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But then also surrounding myself with people that I'm constantly learning from and evolving. I think that's been my journey. That's how I found myself here.
Do you come from a family of actors? Maybe mom, grandma, auntie, uncle, somewhere?
Yes. It's a the Handabiles are storytellers. So my mom used to act. She used to sing. My late sister had the most beautiful voice you've ever heard.
Oh wow.
You know, so it's really an artist family in that nobody is really out in the limelight, but that talent is a common thread within us.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, amazing. Now you have done quite a lot of work, Nancy, and that's why we're so excited to have you, on the podcast today. You have produced shows like Ifipempula and Love Back, Zambia. What was it like behind the scene when working on such major productions?
Yeah. So with Ifipempula, it was produced by my friend Bolan, but he asked me to come on board as a director. What happened when I started producing? Most of the shows that I've produced are reality. And I came from a background of drama, cinematography. I had to adapt. And a lot of the shows that I have deal with ordinary people. So what happened is I had to take my background as a journalist, dealing with ordinary people, and get my background as a filmmaker and try and marry the two, basically. Being behind the camera it's not as easy as being an actor, for me. Because being an actor, it's just give me lines and direct me, tell me where to stand, what to do. I had to pick between one for a time. So I picked being behind the scenes because I felt like I wasn't really managing to do both as effectively. it's stressful, but it's great. Like I said, you constantly have to remind yourself why you started doing it. To be an artist is to every day tell yourself, why am I an artist?
Yeah.
What is my end goal? Because otherwise, along the way, you lose it, especially when you're behind the camera. When you're a director and a producer, you're supposed to inspire the crew. And if you don't believe in what you're doing, you don't love what you're doing, everybody else is going to come to work already tired, already drained. So, yeah, it's been interesting.
On the screen probably the whole day.
They have to be on screen. Acting is a lot of work mentally and physically and psychologically.
Yeah.
So if you have someone leading, even for the crew, leading the crew who's not into what they're doing, then you're doing a great disservice to everybody who's on your project.
Okay. So of the two productions, which one would you say was most challenging for you?
I have done more than those two, so it's really hard to zero in because I've worked on productions like Zuba.
Yeah.
I've worked on my own productions. I think with my productions, because I did Love Back recently, I did Date My Family, Zambia, and Wanilata. I would say Wanilata season 1 was more fun, because it was more fun. And then when I did Love Back was a bit harder to produce. Because the premise of the show, for people who've never watched it, is it's people asking their ex-lovers back.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So we had to deal with a lot of marriages. What happened was we initially thought it was just going to be the usual young people. If you watch my show, we had people who are pastors, women who are in their 50s asking estranged husbands asking back. We had to sort of get into counselor mode. We had to bring a therapist. So it was pretty hard not because it was hard to produce, but the emotions, the emotion aside. And I constantly had to make a decision to say, do I want this content on TV? No. Let me have this other type of content. Let me have this participant as opposed to this one. Yeah, this one is going to be entertaining. But we have so many cases of divorce in the country, so many cases of abuse. And so even as you're doing a reality, you want to make sure that there's still conversations. So because of that, it was a little... But I had a good team, and I'm lucky enough to have people around me who I can call and say, I need advice. I need someone to center me and ground me. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Now, you also touched briefly on Zuba. Could you tell us a bit about that experience?
That was a really long experience because I was there for a number of years. I had initially gone there as an actor. So I had just moved back to Zambia from Kenya. And after that, I was juggling 2 projects. So when I was acting on Zuba, I was also producing a BBC TV show. Yeah. Then season 3, Fred, the current producer, Mtendeni Piri, asked me to come on board as a director. And I mean, I've directed before. I've directed TV shows on Zambezi Magic before, but that was a really big show. It was a huge cast, a huge crew. So it can get very stressful because you have late nights, early mornings, and it's back to back. And then I became associate producer on Zuba as well, which was dealing with cast. So you're directing, but you also have to coach cast and stuff. But I think at some point you have to be really honest with yourself and say, am I stressed? Yes. Do I still want to do this? Yes. So what do I need to do to make the experience better? Because otherwise you have a whole entire breakdown. Yeah, but it was good because I can work anywhere. Yeah. After working on Zuba, I can work anywhere because it's literally international standard.
Absolutely.
You know, the kind of work ethic that Fred inculcates in you, you can work anywhere.
Amazing. Now you talk about different societal issues. You talk about human trafficking and you talk about mental health. How do you approach storytelling when dealing with such emotive subjects, for instance?
For me, it's sieving. It's sieving the information. We have so much information that's out there, but someone in, let's say in Mtendere, or someone from the rural areas that are the kids that are constantly being trafficked, they don't have access to that information. They don't understand that information very well. But if I say, if I feed you information that's easy to understand and that you can relate to, then it becomes easier. So my approach is, I get all the research kits, go through it, and then start picking out what is relevant to the audience here, what is going to make the audience stop whatever they're doing and actually say, oh, you know. And so we've done a couple of short films on human trafficking, which is telling people to open their eyes. Because in border towns, there's a lot of human trafficking. You will see people who will come and they look like they're just grandmothers. But every single time, they have little kids with them. So those bus drivers that transport those people, if we're working with them and we're telling them, I need you to observe some of these things. If there's someone who's always on a bus with kids, please start observing, start asking questions. You know, when you are around a community, a lot of our farm areas have kids who are trafficked. So it's working with the communities there, showing them content that says, sometimes 30% of the children you're seeing are trafficked, you know, and giving them a scenario that they can relate to, telling them, your neighbor has a child who's ironing. That child is 8. That child is 14. You know, you can relate to that, as opposed to me giving you a WHO statistic.
Or infographic.
Yes, an infographic. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, but they won't really know because it's not something they relate to. So for me, my approach is helping people see themselves or see other people on screen. That for me is, I think, the most efficient way to put a message across.
Yeah, right. Now, you have been nominated for prestigious awards and featured in the ranks of Africa Top 100. How do you stay grounded and motivated, particularly as a creative, in an industry that can be very demanding, in an industry that is constantly evolving?
One, it's surrounding myself with people who are going to have the subtitles, but you get what I mean. It's
Absolutely.
very important to have at least one or two people who tell you, you're not that big, please relax. Imposter, take a sit. Imposter syndrome does come in sometimes because we live in a country where, unfortunately, all those accolades don't really translate into financial. Doesn't really translate. You know, so you have imposter syndrome, you know, because you're constantly asking yourself, am I doing enough? And because I'm not a very visible person, sometimes I see my colleagues being visible and I'm like, maybe I'm not doing as much as I need to. But because I meditate a lot, I really just meditate a lot and try to stay grounded. I try to take care of my mental health first. For me, if I feel like this project is going to be harmful to my mental health, I'm in a situation where this is not really working, I try and take a step back. It's not as easy as I make it sound. There are a lot of inner battles that I have to have with myself. You know how artists are, you know, but staying grounded, constantly meditating, talking to people, being honest about how I'm feeling, even with people around me, my friends who are fellow creatives, has really helped me, I think. Yeah, it's really helped me. It's not easy, but
what is the importance of good mental health for a creative like you?
For a creative, when your mental health is not okay, there's a lot of voices in your head. And when you're a creative, you need your brain. You need your mental faculties, you know? And so when you have so many emotions that are happening, so many feelings, you can't really get to the core of your creativity. You know, imagine you have to write a script and you have this constant feelings of not being enough. It's going to affect what you put on paper. It's going to affect what you put out there. And so it's very important for every person who's a creative to have access, one, to mental health services. And, you know, we should have systems in place now where an artist can go and get therapy, you know. But one, therapy is expensive, you know, and artists work, it's a gig economy. So you have a gig for 3 months, you don't have a gig for 4 months. You're saving money, you're not necessarily going to remove 750, you know. So, and that's where circles coming in, finding a safe space. We have friends, yes, because you're both on a TV set, you're both on a radio program. So we're friends, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean I can call you and say I'm having these issues. Find people. You have to find people within your circles, even if they're not in your circle, but who you relate to, like-minded people, who you can talk to. But one of the things for me that helps is journaling. Because when I journal, it's like I'm filtering those thoughts on paper, taking them out so I can get to my creativity. It's very important. Otherwise, you start using substances, you're on drugs, you're depressed. We have so many young creatives now who commit suicide. And it's a pandemic that we're not really talking about because we don't really see the vital and the importanceness, you know. We say, boy, I'm depressed, you know. Boy, go such a just be tough. But no. It's really, really vital for a creative's mental health to be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Nancy, you are an actress. You are an executive producer, filmmaker. You are an acting coach. Now, obviously, of the three, you could share different experiences. But which one of those roles do you say, this I like, I could do this any day?
I love
to pick one.
If I had to pick one.
Yeah. As an actress,
Woo!
or an executive producer, or
Acting coaching.
Acting coach. What do you like about that?
I love acting coaching because it puts me in this zone where I remind myself why I started doing this. I believe that everybody has to have a mentor and has to mentor someone. Knowledge has to constantly circulate.
Yeah.
So the type of acting coaching that I do for me is something that prioritizes an artist's mental health as well. So that's why I like that, because by the end of a session, I actually see the difference I make. When the sets where I've coached actors, you can see how even when they're doing emotional scenes, they'll always ask for a moment to be grounded. And for me, I think it's a bit of a revolution, because we never really had that. We used to tell actors, get into character. Imagine the worst thing that has happened to you. So this actor has 7 more scenes after that, and they have a funeral scene, and you want them to think of their dead mother. And then after that, there's no aftercare. So I'm trying to create a culture of aftercare. I'm trying to create a culture of having intimacy coaches on sets. We don't have that. We expect actors to make out and kiss without really having an intimacy coach. Now in Hollywood, it's actually it's a policy issue. You cannot have a sex scene or an intimate scene without a coach on set.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So for me, it's something that I would do. I think when I retire actively, that's something that I want to really, really do. Yeah. You should come to one of our classes. They're not just for actors. They're for all creators. We breathe, we meditate, we cry, we do yoga, we eat.
Before you get on set.
Yes. And then by the time you're getting as a creative, you have tools, actual tools that help you. Actual tools that help you in your career, but also in your personal life.
Yeah.
Because you always need to be able to be grounded.
Now, Nancy, you speak of tools. I would like us to delve into skills. Obviously, in your space as a creative, things are constantly evolving. There's all this change, technology, the digital space and all. How do you just ensure that you stay on top of your game, to ensure you know what are the trends in acting, what are the trends in filmmaking, and of course in coaching that you do? How do you stay on top of the game?
I read a lot.
Okay.
I read a lot. I am constantly seeking out knowledge. Yes. So I subscribe to a lot of newsletters. I watch a lot of roundtables. You know, they have a lot of, like, this for me is pretty cool because someone can easily watch it, you know. Yeah. So I watch a lot of stuff like this. Other creatives, even people who are not necessarily in the creative industry. But I watch a lot of stuff. I watch a lot of tutorials. I try to attend master classes as well with people I respect. For me, I don't see anybody as competition. I ask myself, okay, this person is doing better than me. What are they doing right?
Yeah.
And
what can I learn from
yes,
them?
and I constantly pick up the phone. If there's anybody I admire, where they're here in Zambia or another country, I constantly pick up the phone and say, do you have a master class? Can I learn from you? I will pay. You know, for me, I think that's how to stay there. Because right now, AI is coming. Yeah. You can complain.
It has come.
Yeah, so you can either adapt or starve. So adaptation is the lifeblood of every creative. You cannot, as a creative, think you're so good, you know it all so much, you're not willing to learn. Yeah.
Now, you talked about the BBC's Talk It Out earlier, and obviously that's an international production. How do you seek out opportunities for collaboration, for partnerships, for synergies? Because obviously in a space as a creative, you can't work in a vacuum.
No.
How do you go about doing that?
I create networks globally.
Yeah.
I try and create networks globally, not just with, sometimes we think the famous people. It's the DOP, it's the AD, it's the, it's the people who are working behind the scenes that you need to know because they constantly have access to opportunities. With the BBC, funny enough, I never actually even applied for that job.
Oh, wow.
I was just recommended by another director who was working with them who said, oh, there's a director in Zambia who does work around health and mental health. and I think you might work well together. So it's networks, really networking, knowing other people, talking to other people, being humble enough to say, I like what you're doing. Can I be in your circle? Can you keep an ear out if there's work? Constantly applying to stuff, fellowships, gigs, guilds. You have to be attached to at least a guild. So for me, I think that's what helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I think we touched on this earlier, the aspect of you talking about human trafficking, the aspect of you talking about mental health issues as well. How do you then decide also, because you have a blog and we'll be getting into that, how do you decide what topics to write about? Do you just get up and write? Are you inspired? And if at all you're inspired, how does that work for you?
I'm an activist at heart. I started out mostly as an activist, marching, placards. And when I started working as a journalist, I was working in human interest. That meant that I used to move around a lot in the communities and see what problems people have. I talk a lot with ordinary people, and I try to understand what the woman, when I go and buy vegetables in Mtendere, what problems does she have, So I found that because I talk a lot with people, I'm an introvert, but I find myself constantly having conversations with people. It helps me understand, okay, what issues are there, what issues are under-talked about. Sometimes there are certain topics that will come up and people jump on them because it looks avant-garde, it's cool. But there are certain conversations, like right now we have an HIV crisis that's slowly, quietly becoming a huge issue in this country. So I try to see what affects me, what has affected the community around me, people I know. I think it's always important to not exist in a vacuum as an artist. You have to constantly talk to people. Right. So for me, whatever affects ordinary people that I can use my platform and my voice, I will speak on it. Yeah, I will speak on it, because for me, I think it's very important. We can't be entertaining people who are not okay. Yeah.
And obviously, your personal blog, I was going to touch on this, has won several awards, and you've just highlighted, your work in terms of how you pick what you talk about. From the different societal issues that you touch on, and speaking up on the aspect of you having won awards because of your personal blog, what topic or what issue would you say, this one is so close to my heart that I can talk about this 24/7? Of the many.
Can I pick two?
Yeah, that would still.
I think for me, mental health is a huge issue for me, because I'm very open about the fact that I've had to see a therapist. I constantly talk about mental health for me because it's something that affects me, that has affected other people that I know. And I always call it the pandemic, because at the core, when you count how many people even in your circle right now, even in this room, who are going through so much and we don't know, it's a huge issue. And there's so many facets and layers to mental health that are there that we haven't even yet scratched the surface. It's only now that people are talking about neurodivergent people who have ADHD and autism, and yet when you read the symptoms of ADHD, you're like, wait, I think I have ADHD.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about it enough. So, yeah. With HIV/AIDS, it's because I grew up in a time when a lot of family members were dying from HIV/AIDS. And anybody who lived around that time, you don't want to see that crisis happen again. There are a lot of young people that I mentor now. I'm going to say that, and I hope I can use this platform, because
please.
We know that now the HIV rates are up, and they're up in adolescents, which is 15-year-olds, 25-year-olds. I'm on Twitter, and a prominent government person says, not government, he's a politician, he's opposition, he says, kids these days are sleeping around because of iPhones. Who's sleeping with those kids? Who's buying them iPhones? Because I don't think a 21, 22-year-old boy is going to buy another 21-year-old an iPhone. So there's a lot of slut shaming. And as an artist, I understand how slut shaming an ordinary woman also affects me. When I'm on screen, what do people say about artists? And because we're constantly saying those things, and not necessarily having platforms where people debunk and say this is not right to say, we need to go back to the drawing board and say what's happening right now in this country with sexual networks, with HIV, is not right. and we can blame each other, but I can't manage to talk to each person individually. I can put up a short film. I can put up a documentary and everybody watch. Remember when we used to have Soul City?
Yeah.
Yes.
Those
So for
ones,
me,
yeah.
those two causes are very vital for me. I have a foundation called Duda's Foundation. My baby cousin tried to commit suicide because he was born with HIV/AIDS. He tried to commit suicide when he was young, when he was a teenager. It eventually killed him. And that's mental health and HIV/AIDS.
Yeah.
So the two are very... Yeah, so
Yeah.
sorry, I said a lot,
No,
but
it's okay.
but for me,
Perfectly
those two
understood.
causes,
Yeah,
yes,
makes a lot of sense.
for me, those two causes I take personal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
understood. Now, what would you say have been some of your most rewarding moments in your career, in your acting,
In my
in your
career,
producing, in your coaching, or in any other space?
I think rewarding. There's been so many little. There's been big moments and small moments. I think one of the most rewarding is actors who I coached when they were kids and are now on screen.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God, I feel old, but
Your work.
the Ranks Africa Top 100 Prominent Africans was pretty cool for me because they selected me by saying I'm amplifying voices in Africa, but also showcasing Africa in a way that breaks stereotypes. I haven't won many awards here. That's like one of the things, but it's cool. I think awards, they validate you, but if you use them to validate yourself, But I think it's constantly creating. I think creating and seeing what I've created is always, for me, I think that's one of the pleasures that I get.
Yeah. So with all that you're doing, with all your future plans, what's next for you? Where are we seeing Nancy? The next 3 years, the next 5 years?
Yeah. Well, 5.
Somebody once says 5. I don't know. I don't even know what's happening next year.
5. Well, the first thing that we're doing now is I'm working with a lot of young creatives. We're calling it going back to basics. So we're doing short films that are 1 minute, 2 minutes long with different creatives because I'm trying to challenge myself to go back to the root of my creativity without necessarily thinking, oh my gosh, this show is going to go on this platform, I need to sell it. We're just doing short films and short films and short films. But there's a project I'm doing that is, for me, very, very passionate to my heart. It's centered around climate change. It's called Earth by Chobwa. Chobwa is my middle name.
Okay.
So we're celebrating the different facets of the earth. Earth, wind, fire, air, using colors to sort of showcase earth in the African setting.
Yellow one of them?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Just checking.
Oshun. She's a black woman, Oshun.
Yeah.
So it's just basically showcasing the beauty of Africa, the beauty of Zambia through different colors. It's a project that I've been doing quietly through the years, but now I feel like I can amplify it. But I'm really working towards art schools for kids. Because I know what art does for children in those areas, because I grew up in those areas. It shifts your type of thinking. And I think we can tell children, don't be violent, don't be what. With so much on screen now, so much vitriol, which, there's so much violence now. It's because of what kids sometimes are consuming. So imagine if they're in schools and they're learning art, they can express themselves, they can draw, they can beat a drum, they can act, they can sing, and still learn other curricular activities. I think for me it makes a real difference. And so that's basically what I've been working towards this year. So hopefully by next year we should have some couple of schools around.
Okay. Great work. Wishing you all the best on that, Nancy. But before I let you go, Nancy, there could be somebody who's watching, a young lady or a young man that's not sure about this acting space. Maybe they've heard so much. It's not lucrative. You not live a comfortable life, and all the wrong information that would be out there. What would be your word of encouragement to somebody watching the podcast and who is uncertain about getting into the creative space?
Yeah. I would say look for alternative voices. We do have voices that are prominent, quite all right, but also look for other people who've maybe been in the industry longer, who might not be as famous. Learn their stories, find out their journeys, read you guys are cataloging people. This is a whole catalog that if I want to learn something about someone, I will read. Also, approach people. Yes, don't go into an inbox and just say hi. Reach out to people. A lot of creatives are willing to talk to you and have synergies, you know. There is money. Yes, it's not as great as other industries, but we have 20 million people. We're not going to be Nigeria overnight. But you have to know why you're becoming a creative. Do you want to be an actor just because you want to be on TV? Do you want to be a director just because you want to be yelling action and cut? You know, ask yourself why you want to really create. Then find your people, find your tribe, and you'll be fine. It's always about finding your tribe. Yeah. Sometimes we attach ourselves to people who are not necessarily our tribe. Your tribe will always find you.
Amazing. Yeah. You find your tribe, and your tribe will always find you. Yes. Nancy, it's been such a joy. My director is flagging me and telling me you have to wind up. I know for sure we definitely need to do a part 2. You need to come back. We touch a bit more about the issues of mental health, the issues about human trafficking, because those are the real issues. And like we say on the Awanachi Conversations, we want to amplify the voices of women and girls, and important issues that affect all of us are issues that would gladly have you come back on set. So we look forward to having you again.
Thank you. This has been fun. Thank you. It's been a very pleasant interview.
Thank you so much. We've enjoyed having you. Well, there you have it. I've been talking to the amazing Nancy Handabile. She's an actress, she's a filmmaker, and of course she's an acting coach. She was just telling us a bit about her life, her journey in the creative space, and how passionate she is about issues of HIV and AIDS, about issues of human trafficking, and of course about issues of mental health. We do look forward to having her come back on the Awanachi Conversation in the not too distant future, so that we can delve more into issues of mental health. I've been your host, Mpunga Chipepo-Simukwai. Do join me next time on this channel, the Awanachi Conversations. Don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye and God bless you.